what happens then with these 5 aggregates is that the ignorant mind identifies with any aspect of those 5 aggregates and clings to them. So here I'd like to introduce that famous, is it Descartes, the philosopher, said, I think therefore I am, which is the basis of all Western philosophy, and I'm just about to deride it somewhat. When you practice insight meditation, you realise that that's in error. Controversial, I know, but there's no denying that there's thinking. And there's no denying that there is thinking about the self. And there's no denying that there is acting based on that thinking in the interests of the idea of the self. But you never find that separately existing entity. So it's more accurate to say there is thinking. Thinking does occur. I don't think anyone's in denial of that, are they? Hope not. Maybe a few hardcore materialists who believe that if it isn't physical it doesn't exist, but that's a thought itself. So, alright. So, yeah, that's a huge thing. So essentially, what Descartes is saying is mental formations are the self. Or that mental formations, thinking, is contained within the self, or the self is contained within thinking, or that the self is the owner of thinking. Let's try another one, feeling. You know, there's a politics of feeling now, that you can't offend people. You can't say, no, that's not true. That's not what it is, because you're not offending them. They are experiencing painful feelings and a craving response to things that they hear that do not accord with their map of the world. So they feel feelings they don't like. They feel painful feelings. And they identify with the feeling. Either I am feeling, or I am contained within feelings, or feelings are contained within me, or I am the owner of feelings. So, perceptions. Again, identity is such a huge issue at the moment. You've got the whole identity politics thing, and even things like Brexit, where people are identifying with things in a way that they never identified. When did we suddenly become either a Brexiter or a Remainer? When did that happen? I didn't used to be, and now I have to be. Except I'm not, of course. I'm neither. So we identify with labels. That's so deep. That's so deep. That's what's challenging so many people in so many different ways. The identification with concepts such as gender, of race, of ability, of economic status. It's rampant. So I perceive, therefore I am. So the ignorant mind clings to perception as being me, or as me being within perception, or as perception as being within me, or as me being the owner of perception. So, materiality. Wow. Well, this leads us on quite interestingly to action. Like, for instance, it's like aging. If I was materiality, do you think I would allow this to be like this if I had power over it? It's like my follicle management of the top of my head would be very, very different now. I would have cascades of wonderful golden hair, of course I would. And would I have bags under my eyes? I'm not going to give you a whole list of things, physical things that I have historically considered to be wrong with myself. But I'm sure I'm not the only one who discovers that they don't actually have power over the body in the way that they thought they did. So what happens if we identify with the body as being the self, or as the self being contained within the body, or as the body being contained within the self? Did I just say that one? You know what I mean by now. Or as the self as being the owner of the body. If I was the owner of the body, oh no, just did that little skit, I'm not going to do it again. But the point is, that leads to action. Because the truth of the aging process, the undeniable truth that you don't have control, runs totally counter to the very premise of self-view. That if it were self, it would, whatever it is, would be controllable. And so in denial of the truth, what do people do? They get things like plastic surgery. They go in for Botox. Is it Botox? That. And you see these people with these frozen faces. There's nothing wrong with aging, actually. It tells you, your face tells you the story of your life. And if your face is just frozen, it's telling you something. Maybe that you're constipated, or that you're in denial of reality to that degree. So there is action based on the clinging. So let's go back to perceptions, or even consciousness and views. It's like, because existence is falling away moment by moment, like let's try to be more accurate, all the content of any experience, the components of experience, are arising and passing away moment by moment. So there is no solidity, there is no certainty, there is constant dissatisfaction, there is a constant sense of separation, a constant sense that something is missing. And so this process of identification has to be ongoing too. You can never stop identifying with things, because you always have to keep the illusion of solidity ongoing. So we are faced with the harsh realities of life, and we say, well, life shouldn't be like this, and we'll come on to craving in the next video, hopefully. And so we formulate views about how life should be, what would make it right, what would stop it from being wrong. And we're always having to reinforce those. And so you have to act in order to reinforce them. Even on just the mental level, you are acting to reinforce the clinging attachment to views, and the views come to represent who and what you stand for, who and what you are. And of course, life always provides you with plenty of evidence of the opposite of your view, whatever it is. So views divide. So there's this constant process of division and action in order to overcome that sense of division, often by trying to get rid of the thing that opposes you, the view that opposes you. And we know where that leads. So Yeah, I'm trying to think of other examples of the way that clinging to the aggregates then leads to action. Well, on Cappy's diagram for clinging, upadana, he has sensuous clinging. Well, so there's the whole clinging to sensuousness, isn't there, for the feelings that the so there's the clinging to sensuous experience itself, so clinging to materiality as being the body, but also clinging to feelings, and how do we gain the feelings that we want? Through undertaking actions that generate sensuous contacts of different kinds. And so feelings lead to action in order to experience further feelings, which of course are transient. They age, they decay, and it requires constant work to keep getting the feelings that we want and to avoid the feelings that we don't want. So again, you see that clinging leads to action. Belief in mere rule and ritual, that takes many, many forms actually. It sounds like it's talking about religious ritual in some ways, but people cling to rules in all walks of life, under the impression that if I just maintain the rule, then I'll be alright. I come under fire occasionally because we don't practice Buddhist ritual at the House of Inner Tranquillity. The founders from the very beginning decided that they weren't going to do that. We don't chant, we don't do prostration. There are all kinds of things that some Buddhists say we're doing wrong. And then we get into a whole discussion as to what makes a true Buddhist. But the reason that they decided not to do it was because people can cling to the ritual and the ceremony and believe what they're doing is actually taking them towards, say, enlightenment. So there's the constant performance and repetition of ceremony, which has absolutely nothing to do with becoming enlightened at all. It's just further action on the wheel. Now, it might very well be that the performance of those, if those rituals are undertaken intelligently, that they yield a soft devotional outlook, which is ideal for meditation. But as my teacher once said, it's like, for a lot of people, it's like the body may bend in prostration, but the mind has not moved one iota, meaning that it's actually performed egotistically as clinging to identity and reinforcing one's status in the group through the performance of those particular actions. But in and of themselves, rules and rituals can never produce freedom from the wheel of samsara. And that then brings me on, just reminds me of what we talked about in the first video we did about the Buddha's search for the realization of the cessation of suffering and all the trials and tribulations that he went through practicing austerities. That's exactly that. Well, that's what you do. His attendant fellow spiritual travellers who were attending on him when he was practicing the austerities, when he realised that the austerities wouldn't work, they all left him. Because that's the tradition. That's what you do. And the Buddha, in his genius, came to realise that it was never ever going to work. And as we discussed in the first episode, and I just point it out here, clinging to mere rule and ritual will produce results. You can't transcend the wheel of samsara to just performing more actions. It's just ongoing, never ending. So, gosh, how did I get there? So I'm going to wrap this up because I think I've been talking for an absolute age this time. I don't know why this has taken so long to go through. But I hope you can see, on the one hand, how it is that clinging arises and how clinging then leads to action. And in all cases it is the based on the delusion that the sense of dissatisfaction can be removed through actions that I perform. And that deep underlying sense of dis-ease, that fundamental suffering, cannot be removed through action. It has to be through understanding. So what I would suggest to anybody who would like to discover the truth of non-duality through Buddhist insight meditation, you definitely have to have a working understanding of the five aggregates and Paticca Samuppada, and you have to stop thinking about it. After a small amount of study and accepting the need for a certain amount of wise reflection, any more thinking is counterproductive. It's just doubt. That's all it is. So you have to be prepared to do the difficult thing, which is to learn properly how to calm your mind down, how to free it from passionate responses, how to overcome hindrances. And then once the mind is quiet, it's directing your whole being to the ongoing scrutiny and investigation of the components of each new conscious experience. And it's through doing that that you come to see directly, it's not thought out, you see it directly, that indeed thinking arises due to conditions and passes away. Perceptions arise and pass away. Feelings arise and pass away. Craving itself arises and passes away. The idea of self arises and passes away. The idea of self is a pretty useful thing to have. You know? But it's not self. It means that in conventional terms, I can be me and you can be you. And you can do all the things you do and I can do all the things I do, and we can say, yes, I'm doing this, you're doing that, fine. But as the Buddha himself said, I use the terms, I'm not confused by them. Self-view arises. The idea of self arises. It's useful. But through practicing Vipassana, insight meditation, you come to see through appearances. You see through the appearance of separation and division. And you understand the context in which it's okay to have an idea of self, but that the idea of self is not self. It arises due to conditions and passes away. All right. Hope that's been of help. Feedback, very welcome. I don't think there's any other PDF I have to upload this time. So next time we'll look at craving itself. Take care.